Echoes of Sacrifice. Chapter 1. Whispers of Dusk. Dusk draped over Confluence Square, casting long shadows that twisted like the unspoken fears of its inhabitants. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, blending into a musty perfume that pulled Wraith back to a time when they held life, not death. Beneath the soft moss, the ground squelched with each step, a reminder of wrongs buried beneath the surface. A child lay on the cobbled stones, feverish and pale, her breath shallow. Wraith knelt beside the girl, fingers brushing against her cool skin. With their heart racing, they confronted the community's despair, feeling a familiar burden twisting in their gut. Wraith glanced at the girl, a small child with tangled hair and eyes fluttering like moths drawn to the dim light of hope. She mustered a weak smile which quickly faltered into a grimace of pain. I'm cold," she whispered, shivering. Wraith's fingers brushed the bone pendant dangling from their neck, a keepsake from a time when healing was their gift, not a curse. The memory of warmth stung like salt on a fresh wound. "Be brave, girl. Unlike me, you still have a chance." Wraith murmured, their voice cold and clipped, yet a hint of something deeper lingered beneath. The murmurs of the community surrounded them, a chorus of unease, each whisper echoing their past failures. Malina approached, her eyes wide and hopeful, a stark contrast to the heavy despair pressing down on Wraith. "What if we could bring her some warmth, Wraith, like we did back then?" Her voice held optimism that grated against Wraith's sharpened nerves. Irritation sparked in their chest. "Help with what? Trite remedies and futile wishes. This illness. It's retribution, Malina. A decree for those who let me falter." They spat, the words slicing through the air like a blade. Malina flinched, her smile wavering, but she pressed on, undeterred. "But you helped so many before. We can figure this out together." The coldness of their tone pierced through Malina's resolve, and Wraith felt a surge of dominance. The musty scent of decay swirled in the air, flooding them with memories of lost patience. "Together you mean to bury your head in the ground while the rot spreads?" The coldness of their tone pierced through Malina's resolve, but as they gazed at the girl's flushed cheeks, a determination to shield the innocent from their own mistakes stirred within them. "Fine, we shall gather the herbs, but know this, I won't coddle weakness." Wraith straightened, loosening their grip on the bone pendant, allowing a semblance of purpose to rise. The locals watched with wary anticipation. Wraith turned back to the child who had fallen silent, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. The morning sun poured through the tall stone arches of the Confluence Square, casting shadows that danced across the uneven cobblestones. A chill lingered in the air, mingling with the earthy scent of damp soil and decaying leaves, stirring unease in her stomach. The square buzzed with energy, the whispering walls amplifying the faint rustle of leaves, while the distant murmur of the crowd swelled against the stone. Malina Zandri stepped onto the raised central platform, its cool surface grounding her amidst the creeping vines coiling around the dais. Today, she would rally her community against the illness plaguing their children, even as the echoes of history loomed around her. Malina raised her voice, her words slicing through the thick air. "We can't let fear take over. Our kids need us." The echoes of her plea ricocheted off the stone walls, amplifying her urgency. A mix of determination and hesitation swept across the crowd. Some nodded, their eyes glinting with resolve, while others shifted uncomfortably, the scent of sweat mingling with the damp earth beneath their feet. Wraith Yseris's shadow loomed, a threat that darkened her resolve. Wraith stepped forward, his voice a low growl that sent shivers through the crowd. "What's the point? This illness is a curse. We can't win against it." His words dripped with bitterness, igniting murmurs of doubt among the gathered locals. The creeping vines seemed to coil tighter, as if drawn to the tension in the air. "We are stronger together. We can find a way to fight this." Malina pressed on, her voice unwavering. The cobblestones felt uneven beneath her feet, mirroring her shaky resolve. The gardens surrounding the square, once a symbol of wild beauty, now radiated a darker undertone, reflecting the illness that had taken root in their lives. "Do you care for our children or not?" Malina challenged Wraith, locking eyes with him, her defiance clear. As murmurs rippled through the crowd, some turned away, unwilling to confront the truth of Malina's words, while others leaned in, drawn by the flicker of hope she ignited. A child's voice rang out,
pure and unwavering, calling her name. A surge of warmth flooded through her, pushing back against the chill of doubt. As the child's voice echoed, Malina noticed a change in the adults around her, a spark igniting where there had been only shadows. "We can't give up. We owe it to our children," she declared, her conviction steadying her. The gardens, once chaotic, began to feel like a source of strength, a reminder of the resilience that lay dormant within them all. Looking out at the crowd, anticipation mingled with trepidation, a reminder that their struggle was far from over.
The shrouded negotiation grounds stretched before me, the mist clinging to my skin like a heavy blanket of memories. Towering trees loomed overhead, their gnarled branches twisting into the dusk sky, barely allowing the fading light to touch the moss-covered stones beneath my feet. Each step sank into the softened earth, releasing the musty scent of damp decay mingled with the eerie whispers of the grove. A chill crept along my spine, as if the shadows held secrets of past negotiators now watching my every move. A low rustle in the underbrush sent adrenaline coursing through my veins, the pulse of the wildflowers nearby thrumming in time with my unease. Near the weathered stone altar, its surface etched with cryptic symbols that shimmered in the dim light, I stood firm. The ground beneath me was a tapestry of soft moss and creeping vines, each step a reminder of the ancient promises made here. Echoes of voices long silenced resonated in the air, their hopes and fears entwined with the very fabric of this sacred space. A distant snap of twigs broke my focus, drawing my attention to the shadows, where a figure shifted just beyond the tree line. Wraith's cold voice sliced through my thoughts, a stark reminder of my failures, demanding I retreat. Yet a flicker of defiance ignited within me against the encroaching darkness. The breeze picked up, swirling around me like a restless spirit, carrying whispers of old negotiations that threatened to drown me in doubt. My heart raced, each beat resonating with the vibrant wildflowers, their colors a stark contrast to the encroaching night. The damp earth clung to my lips, a reminder of the burdens I bore for my people and myself. Shadows twisted and danced, blurring the line between memory and reality, yet I fought the urge to flee, grounding myself in the essence of this sacred space. Each breath mingled with the sweet decay of fallen leaves, anchoring me in the reality of my choices and their consequences. Standing at the crossroads of fear and resolve, the grove's shadows closed in while a faint glimmer of light filtered through the leaves above, painting the ancient stones in muted gold. Responsibility weighed heavily, like the damp fog around me, yet within it stirred fierce determination. I would not retreat. I would confront Wraith and the darkness poised to consume my community. As whispers of the past swirled around me, the pulse of the wildflowers echoed my resolve, reminding me that even in the deepest shadows, hope could still bloom. I stepped forward, the air thickening with unspoken challenges. The ancient trees formed a natural barrier, isolating me from the outside world, and my senses heightened in the stillness. The low hum of unseen creatures vibrated through the air, affirming that the shrouded negotiation grounds lay cloaked in dusk, shadows pooling like ink around Malina's feet. She stood at the edge, heart thumping heavily against her ribcage, the weight of her community's plight pressing down like the damp fog swirling around her. If she didn't confront Wraith soon, if she didn't rally the people behind her, their hope would wither, and the corruption would spread, tainting everything pure. Time slipped through her fingers like sand. The week was almost over, with only days left until the darkness could become permanent. Malina's breath quickened as she recalled Wraith's venomous words, the way they had twisted through the crowd like poison. She had to decide, fight against Wraith's influence or watch her community crumble beneath the shadows. Malina clenched her fists, her pulse racing as she listened to the murmurs of the townsfolk. They spoke of illness and despair, and her heart sank deeper. Once a beacon of hope, her shoulders drooped, and she avoided eye contact with the townsfolk. The fear of Wraith's manipulations wrapped around her throat like a noose. What if she couldn't inspire them? What if Wraith's hold was too strong? A shiver coursed through her as the second hand of the clock marched relentlessly in her mind, each tick a heavy reminder of her responsibility. They needed her, yet every moment spent hesitating fed her guilt like a ravenous beast. A voice broke through her thoughts, a local mother whispering, "If we don't act soon, it will consume us all. Wraith isn't just a rumor, he's a curse on our land." Malina's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about the very essence of their community.
Yet, how could she lead them when her own doubts loomed? The shadows of her past failures hovered ominously, and the urge to flee tugged at her. But retreating would mean surrendering to Wraith's darkness. She had to face her fears head-on to find her voice in the chaos. Malina's gaze darted to the horizon, where the last glimmers of light fought against the encroaching night. Dread crept in, wrapping around her like a shroud. What if she gathered them only to fail? The pressure in her chest tightened. 3 days, 3 days, until everything she loved could slip into the abyss. She needed a plan, but what plan could unite a people fractured by fear? As she wrestled with her indecision, the whispers grew louder, and she could either be the spark of hope or the nail in their coffin. With a sudden surge of determination, Malina stepped forward, her voice trembling yet resolute as she called out to the locals. "We must stand together, friends, against Wraith. We can't let his darkness swallow us whole." The crowd turned, eyes.
The shadows of the shrouded negotiation grounds loomed like spectres, wrapping around Malina as she ventured deeper into their embrace. The fading light painted the air in hues of purple and grey where whispers of ancient deals lingered, echoing the weight of her purpose. Each breath tasted of damp earth, mingling with the bitter tang of unease. Urgency clawed at her throat, a reminder of the illness spreading through the community like wildfire. If she didn't find the truth now, it could fester into something irreversible. This was no longer just about answers, it was about saving lives. The rustling in the underbrush echoed in her mind, a portent of the unknown that lay ahead. Malina steadied herself, every nerve alight with anticipation, and stepped forward into the dark. Wraith emerged from the shadows, a silhouette draped in confidence. His smirk flickered in the dim light, a mere shadow of sincerity. "Malina, always the brave one, what brings you to this haunted place?" His voice, smooth like oil, oozed charm. Beneath that charm coiled a serpentine cunning that threatened her resolve. She squinted, searching for the truth in his eyes, but found only a distorted reflection of her own fear. "The illness, Wraith. It's spreading. We need answers, not riddles." The words tumbled from her lips, raw and desperate, a plea wrapped in accusation. His laughter danced in the air, mocking, as he leaned closer, the light glinting off his sharp features. "Ah, but the answers are woven into the fabric of our world, dear Malina. Perhaps you're not ready to unravel them yet." Tension thickened, coiling tighter as his words dangled like a noose. She clenched her fists, nails biting into her palms, grounding herself against the rising tide of frustration. "Stop dancing around the truth. People are suffering." Each word dripped with urgency, but Wraith only shrugged, a nonchalant gesture that ignited her fury. "And what if the truth is far worse than you imagine?" The smirk never faltered, but a flicker of something darker crossed his gaze, a challenge, ignoring the churning in her stomach. Malina leaned in closer, searching for that thread of vulnerability in the half-lit enigma before her. Just as she prepared to launch her accusations, a scream sliced through the air, sharp as a knife. It echoed through the grounds, reverberating in her skull. Malina froze, her pulse quickening, the sound a chilling reminder that chaos lurked nearby. Not again. Wraith's smirk faltered for a fleeting moment, then he masked it with practiced indifference. Chapter 2: Veil of Sacrifice. Dusk settled over the shrouded negotiation grounds, casting the world in hues of desperation. Malina Zandri knelt beside the frail child, urgency prickling at her skin as she focused on the sickly wrist, pale and fragile. A hidden symbol, dark and foreboding, rested there like a brand of misfortune. Time was slipping away. If she couldn't uncover the connection between the illness and the symbol, soon everything could shatter, and something pure would be lost forever. The need to understand pushed against her, but her past failures gnawed at her resolve, threatening to drown her in doubt. Malina's fingers trembled as she traced the cold lines of the symbol. Memories surged, images of her past failures, her inability to save those who had relied on her. Guilt tightened around her throat, threatening to choke her resolve. The necessity to confront Wraith loomed large in her mind, but the thought sent a shiver down her spine. What if she failed again? The child whimpered, pulling her back to the present, and each moment felt heavier, the urgency pressing in on her. "What if I'm too late?" she whispered, a plea laced with dread.
Each second wasted could mean another life lost, another soul tainted by despair. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, every whisper a threat, and every moment a challenge. Malina's gut twisted as she glanced at the child, eyes fluttering in and out of consciousness. Should she risk seeking help from the others? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. It would mean exposing herself to danger, revealing her struggles. But if she didn't act fast, the child might not survive the night. 3 days left until everything could shatter. She was caught between her fears and her duties, the weight of her choices pressing heavily against her resolve. With a deep breath, Malina steeled herself against the encroaching shadows. Her instinct screamed to flee, but she wouldn't abandon the child to a fate sealed by inaction. Time was not on her side, and stakes rose like a tide threatening to drown her. She had one chance to confront Wraith and demand answers, to unearth the truth behind the illness. Yet a chilling thought settled in her mind. What if Wraith was waiting for her? What if the answers she sought would lead to more darkness? As the child stirred again, a soft whimper breaking the silence, Malina resolved to act. She would confront Wraith. Adrenaline surged through her as she stepped into the unknown, determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost.
The fog curled around Malina like a shroud, thick and suffocating, blurring the edges of the shrouded negotiation grounds. Shadows clung to the remnants of stone tables where deals had once sealed the fates of many. She stood at the precipice of this haunted place, the echoes of past negotiations echoing in her mind. The child's wrist, marked with that ominous symbol, burned in her memory. Confronting Wraith loomed before her, a spectre of danger and uncertainty, yet the urgency gnawed at her insides. Time twisted in her gut, the weight of her past pressed on her, urging her towards a resolution. She could not fail again, not now. Malina inhaled the damp, earthy scent of the ground, grounding herself as memories surged within her. The last negotiation, the betrayal bitterness, lingered on her tongue. She had trusted too deeply, and the consequences had scarred her, leaving her wary of shadows and whispers. A gust of wind rattled the leaves overhead, a reminder that she stood alone. The sensation of unseen eyes watching her prickled at her skin. What awaited her within those depths? A reckoning or ruin? The symbol danced in the periphery of her mind, its meaning twisting like smoke. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms as she wrestled with the decision. Allies? They had failed her before, or had she failed them? The thought churned a tempest of doubt. She turned, scanning the fog-cloaked landscape. Could she trust anyone here? The ground beneath her shifted, a reminder of the maze that awaited her, twisting paths leading to unknown dangers. With a deliberate breath, Malina squared her shoulders. The child's innocent face haunted her. No child should bear such burdens. Whispers of the past urged her to retreat, to hide like she had before. But urgency twisted her resolve. She lunged forward, driven by a desperate need to uncover the truth. The woods seemed to part for her, but tension thickened the air, each step echoing her hesitation. What if Wraith awaited, a reflection of her past mistakes? As she reached the edge of the clearing, the fog began to lift, revealing the stark reality of her choice. Shadows danced, teasing her with memories of what was lost. A chill crept along her spine, and she hesitated, caught between the past and her future. The symbol, a tether to both innocence and danger, pulsed with a life of its own. What if confronting Wraith led to answers, but also to a reckoning she wasn't ready to face? The weight of her decision pressed down as she took a deep breath, thick with uncertainty. She would step into the unknown, but at what cost? As the fog receded, the fog curled around Malina like a shroud, thick and damp, swallowing the last whispers of sunlight. Shadows writhed beneath the gnarled trees, their twisted limbs grasping for secrets buried in the ground. She stepped into the shrouded negotiation grounds, where the chill in the air seeped into her bones, stirring remnants of lost negotiations and broken promises. With a deep breath she focused on the child's wrist, where the symbol glimmered faintly, an innocent beacon entangled in danger's web. What truths lurked beneath its surface? Malina knelt, her fingers gliding across the child's skin, the warmth a stark contrast to the cold that enveloped her. The symbol pulsed, drawing her closer as memories flickered in the back of her mind, Laughter fading into shadows, a promise of safety twisted into something darker. The air thickened with dread as Wraith Yseris stepped from the shadows, a spectre of her past and a reminder of the stakes involved. He loomed against the fading light,
eyes glinting with an unsettling mix of menace and concern. "You don't belong here, Malina," he rasped, voice low and gravelly, drawing strength from the darkness around them. "Turn back." Malina's heart raced. The child's pleading gaze anchored her, pushing her past the fear gripping her limbs. Rising defiance ignited within her. "I have to know," she replied, her voice steady despite the tremors coursing through her. Wraith stepped closer, an unsettling presence, his aura suffocating. "Some truths are better left buried, Malina. You tread a dangerous path." A sudden echo reverberated through the clearing, an unsettling reminder of what lay hidden within the shadows. Malina froze, the sound twisting her stomach in knots. What lurked beyond the veil of fog, a memory or a warning? The sensation of being watched lingered, an oppressive weight on her spirit. Did he sense the encroaching darkness as well? The echo faded, and determination surged within her. She would unearth the truth, no matter the cost. Malina's gaze flickered back to the child, the symbol shimmering like a dying star, its secrets begging to be unveiled. Standing at the crossroads of fear and resolution, a storm raged within her. Wraith's warning echoed in her mind, but the child's wide eyes anchored her. With one last glance at the twisted shadows, she stepped forward. The ground trembled beneath her, tension thickening the air, revealing that the stakes were monumental. As she reached out to grasp the child's wrist, a chilling breeze swept through the clearing, carrying the scent of damp earth and forgotten promises. What would she awaken?
The midday sun blazed over Confluent Square, illuminating the anxious faces of the townsfolk gathered around Malina Zandri. Their whispers, thick with suspicion, filled the air, creating a stifling atmosphere. She knelt beside a feverish child, his small body racked with coughs that shattered the tense silence. Each ragged breath was a reminder of their dire situation. If she didn't uncover the truth behind this illness by week's end, everything pure within their community could be at risk. A fine sheen of sweat coated her brow as she grasped the child's wrist, searching desperately for answers. As her fingers brushed the child's skin, a chill coursed through Malina. There it was, a small intricate symbol etched into the delicate flesh, echoing the one found at the negotiation site. Panic surged within her. Was this illness a curse rooted in their town? The townsfolk shuffled closer, their murmurs rising in intensity. An elder stepped forward, eyes narrowed. "What are you doing? You're just making it worse." His voice was thick with accusation, and their judgment loomed over her like a storm cloud. She had to act fast. The crowd's distrust was a pressure cooker ready to explode. With each passing second, the child's breathing grew more labored, each wheeze a painful reminder of time slipping away. Malina's resolve solidified. This symbol could hold the key to the child's suffering and the town's fate. Yet every glance from the townsfolk felt like daggers, piercing through her determination. "You have to leave him alone," a woman shouted, her voice trembling with fear. Torn between the need to save the child and the rising panic of the crowd, Malina's heart raced. Could she risk further suspicion to reveal the truth? "Listen to me. If we don't find out what this means, we might lose more than just him." Malina's voice rose above the crowd, desperation lacing her words. They hesitated, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. The ticking clock of their collective fate echoed in her mind. If she failed to uncover the origins of this illness, it wouldn't just mean losing a child, it would mean the corruption of something sacred in their lives. The child coughed violently, and Malina knew time was running out. Summoning every ounce of courage, Malina pressed her fingers against the symbol again, longing for clarity. The child's skin felt hot beneath her touch, and she whispered a silent prayer for answers. Suddenly, a piercing scream sliced through the air, freezing her in place. A figure emerged from the crowd, eyes wild with terror. "They're coming! We need to go now!" Dusk enveloped the shrouded negotiation grounds, where shadows clung to the ancient stones like a shroud. Malina Zandri stood at the edge, the steady thump of her heart echoing in her ears as twilight deepened around her. The weight of her past failures bore down, an oppressive presence in her chest. With only 3 days left until everything she held dear could be tainted, fear and guilt twisted within her. Confronting Wraith Yseris had brought her to this precipice, and the thought of him lurking nearby sent shivers down her spine. The child's safety depended on her next move, each moment slipping away like grains of sand. Should she face Wraith directly,
or gather allies to confront him? Clenching her fists, she stood frozen in place, grappling with doubt and indecision. Malina's breath came in rapid bursts, a whisper of panic rising within her. Wraith's warning echoed in her mind, a relentless reminder of what was at stake. Failure meant corruption would seep into the very essence of purity she was sworn to protect. Memories of lost children and shattered trust crashed over her, drowning her in despair. What if I can't protect him? The thought gnawed at her, a taunting echo of her past. Time slipped away, each tick amplifying her urgency. The ground beneath her felt unsteady as she wrestled with her decision. Confronting Wraith was a dangerous gamble, one that could cost her far more than her own life, yet turning her back on a child's safety would make her a monster. I can't let him down again, she murmured into the encroaching darkness. Each flicker of resolve was met with waves of doubt, memories crashing against her like a stormy sea. The shadows danced around her, each one a reminder of the danger looming ever closer. The sound of footsteps broke her reverie, and she froze, pulse quickening. Was it Wraith? Instinct screamed at her to flee, but she stood frozen in place, torn between confrontation and the instinct to hide. The clock ticked louder in her ears, a cruel reminder that time was not on her side. The child's fate intertwined with hers, an unbearable weight pressing down. She could almost hear the child's cries, a haunting melody echoing in her mind. If she didn't act soon, it would be too late. As the footsteps drew closer, she faced a choice: stand and fight, or run to gather allies. Her urgency consumed her as moments slipped away, a ticking clock that threatened to drown her resolve. The shadows pressed in, and the air felt heavy with impending dread. An image of the child twisted with the spectre of Wraith, a horrific reminder of what was at stake. Each moment of hesitation increased the danger for the child. Her throat tightened, caught in a struggle between confrontation and safety. Clarity struck, action was imperative. With a final deep breath.
Chapter 3. Whispers of Dusk. Laughter lingered in the air. A spectre of dread clung to Malina as she entered the sunlit confluence square. Once a vibrant hub of joy, the square now simmered with unease. Shadows of past conflicts whispered between the cobblestones, each crack a reminder of battles fought and lost. Determination surged within her, a flickering flame against the encroaching darkness. She squared her shoulders, her voice rising above the morning din, ready to rally the townsfolk against Wraith's suffocating grip, but that laughter echoed, a reminder that she was not alone in this struggle, spurring her to fight for what was right. Together we can rise from this darkness. Wraith's words are just shadows trying to fracture us, but our hearts hold the light to bring us together, right? Malina's voice sliced through the murmurs, firm yet pleading. Faces turned, some curious, others hardened by doubt. She raised her hands, palms out, as if to embrace them all. A few nodded, hope flickering in their eyes, but behind her the crowd shifted uneasily, a tension that made her stomach twist. Would they stand with her, or would fear drown her out? A figure emerged from the throng, tall and imposing, one of Wraith's loyalists. You honestly believe we'll buy your hollow promises? Wraith is our fortress, and your insurrection is nothing but foolishness. Just look at the mess Hope has led us into. His clipped voice dripped with arrogance, striking at her resolve. Shouts erupted, a cacophony of angry voices that threatened to engulf her. Malina's stomach twisted. We can find a cure. We can heal this community. But her hesitation grew, gnawing at her resolve. Chaos erupted, drowning her out. Malina's voice faltered, her words swallowed by the roaring crowd. Panic tightened her chest as she stepped back, eyes darting for escape. The throng surged forward, bodies jostling, fists clenched. Was this how it would end? Would Wraith's followers snuff out her spark? She fought for breath, the weight of their fear pressing down like a shroud. In the midst of the chaos, a child's wail pierced through the noise, raw and desperate. Malina's heart clenched. The child, the very reason she stood here, had vanished in the turmoil. She lunged forward, but the throng pushed her back, a wall of resisting bodies. In that moment, her resolve wavered. Was this fight worth it if she couldn't even protect the innocent? A question lingered in the air, heavy and unyielding. She would not surrender, not today. But as the crowd surged, shadows encroached and time slipped away. With a final surge of determination, Malina raised her voice above the chaos. We are not alone together. We can reclaim our home from fear. Her words. Dusk draped over the shrouded negotiation grounds. the air thick with the stench of damp earth and decaying leaves, as if the ground itself mourned the chaos of the earlier riot. Malina Zandri stood at the centre, where shadows twisted like memories, each corner of the mossy expanse whispering tales of failed negotiations and lost hopes. The soft squelch underfoot echoed her heartbeat, a rhythm of anxiety and determination. She inhaled deeply, the mustiness mingling with something sweet, a reminder of the herbs she once tended, their delicate fragrances a stark contrast to the bitterness of her current reality. A chill breeze brushed past, sending a cold wave down her spine, compelling her to wrap her arms around herself, grounding against the looming shadows of doubt. Malina's gaze drifted toward the tree line, where the last remnants of daylight flickered, mirroring the fading hope within her. A rustle from the underbrush made her freeze, her breath caught, the faces of those she had failed flashing through her mind, children, mothers, the elderly, each ghost demanding justice. The memories clung to her like the moss underfoot, tenacious and unyielding. Why hadn't she been strong enough to rally them? A soft hum escaped her lips, a soothing melody that danced with the wind, but it did little to quell the turmoil brewing inside. She had always been a protector, a healer, yet today she felt adrift, slipping through the cracks of her own resolve. "They were counting on you, Malina," she whispered to the trees, her voice barely above a whisper, lost among the rustling leaves. "What if I can't find my way back?" The words hung heavy in the air, unanswered, as doubt slithered into her thoughts. She recalled a time when she stood here, the scent of her herbal concoctions swirling around her like armor during the disease outbreak. She had saved so many, but that one failure echoed louder than the rest. A snap of a twig pulled her from her reverie. Malina straightened, her breath quickening at Wraith's presence, looming like a storm cloud, always meticulous, always ready to pounce. The thought of confronting her sent a cold wave down Malina's spine. "You think you're the only one with plans, Wraith?" she mumbled under her breath, fists clenching at her sides, but the fear of confrontation gripped her throat like a vice. What if Wraith dismissed her? What if she belittled her ideas again? She took a step forward, the softness of the moss squishing beneath her, grounding her. The air was still thick with the stench of decay, but beneath it, a faint whiff of lavender, a memory of her grandmother's garden, brought a flicker of warmth. Malina inhaled deeply, letting the familiar fragrance wash over her. She straightened her shoulders, resolve hardening. She would not let Wraith. The shrouded negotiation grounds loomed before Malina, a haunted sanctuary steeped in forgotten promises. Soft moss yielded beneath her worn boots, a plush carpet alive with whispers of old negotiations. Mist curled like ghostly fingers through the air, heavy with the scent of damp earth and sweet decay, as if the very ground breathed in anticipation. Filtering through the gnarled branches overhead, the morning light danced in dappled patterns, casting an eerie glow that flickered with shadows of ancient trees. Under the oppressive atmosphere, a shiver ran down her back, igniting the fire of her resolve. Here, in this sacred yet twisted space, she would confront the Wraith and reclaim her community. Malina stepped forward, her pulse quickening with the distant rustle of leaves, an unsettling murmur echoing her anxiety. Wraith stood at the weathered stone altar, his voice smooth and persuasive, each word cutting through the mist like a knife. The crowd around him leaned in, captivated, their faces a mix of awe and doubt. She could see their eyes darting between Wraith and herself, the air thick with expectations. As she opened her mouth to speak, her voice wavered under the scrutiny. "Do you remember the good old days? We can find a way to heal together just like we did back then," she called out, desperation creeping into her tone, the cool breeze seeming to carry her words away. Wraith's laughter rang out, a rich sound echoing through the grove, twisting the crowd's attention back to him. "Change? A fleeting thought, merely words in the wind, wouldn't you agree?" he taunted, his voice a silken thread weaving through the air. "But what has she done? Look around, the sickness spreads, and she stands there hoping for miracles." The crowd, once her allies, shifted like shadows, doubt flickering across their faces, each one a ghost of her past failures. The whispers grew louder, rustling through the trees, and the chill deepened, wrapping tighter around her throat as she fought to breathe, to reclaim the narrative. As the murmurs shifted into jeers, the ground beneath her trembled, not from her own resolve but from the shifting loyalties of the crowd. The moss squelched softly underfoot, a reminder of her precarious position. A bead of sweat trickled down her back, the dampness of the air clinging to her skin like a second layer, heavy and suffocating.
She pressed her palm against the stone altar, grounding herself, the ancient energy pulsing beneath her fingertips, desperate for connection. But as Wraith continued to weave his spell, tendrils of doubt crept back in, tightening their grip around her. "You think she cares for you?" Wraith's voice was a low growl now, echoing through the grove like a predator. "She only cares about her own failures." The words hung in the air, thick with malice, and the crowd's laughter pierced her, cold and biting. Malina.
Dusk settled over the shrouded negotiation grounds, casting elongated shadows that twisted like the doubts knotting in Malina's mind. The cool stone of the altar lingered beneath her fingertips, offering fleeting solace against the echoing jeers from earlier. A flicker of determination clashed with insecurities, igniting a quiet storm within her. She had not come this far to let the ghosts of past failures hold her back. No, she would fight for her people, for herself. The air thickened, charged with unresolved tensions, as if the very ground were a spectator to her turmoil, urging her to confront the shadows just beyond her sight. The crowd had dispersed, leaving behind a suffocating silence. Malina's breath hitched while surveying the desolate grounds, remnants of anger lingering like smoke in the air. Each step felt like wading through mud, heavy and resistant. She clenched her fists, nails biting into her palms, anchoring herself to the present. Memories swirled like autumn leaves caught in a gust, those who had once looked to her for guidance, their eyes flashing with desperation and hope. They had trusted her. Would they still believe in her after today? A shiver crawled up her spine when the wind whispered through the branches, carrying faint cries from the sick. The sound clawed at her chest, igniting urgency. They needed her. Retreating was not an option. She had come too far to allow fear to dictate her actions. Malina stepped closer to the edge of the grounds, where shadows pooled like water and the weight of expectations pressed against her. Guilt coiled tightly in her gut, but each cry resonated deeper. It was not just her community at stake, it was her very soul, the essence she had fought to reclaim. The darkness beckoned, a reminder of the lives she had sworn to protect. With the last vestiges of daylight slipping away, Malina's resolve hardened. The pulse of the land throbbed, As dusk settled over the confluence square, the air crackled with unspoken words, a weight pressing down on both Malina Zandri and Wraith Yseris. The ancient stone arches loomed above them, casting long shadows on the uneven cobblestones below. The central platform, once a stage for negotiations, lay partially hidden beneath creeping vines and moss, a testament to the passage of time. Malina, with her fiery auburn hair and sharp, determined gaze, stepped closer to Wraith, who stood with an unsettling calmness, his dark cloak swirling slightly as a chill swept through the square. She could sense the tension, not just from their conversation, but from the very atmosphere around them. "We need to talk about the illness plaguing our community," Malina said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. She watched Wraith closely, searching for any sign of vulnerability beneath his cold exterior. His pale skin glinted in the fading light, and his piercing blue eyes held a glimmer of something deeper, something foreboding. Wraith's voice sliced through the air, steady and cold, as he replied, "You think you're the only one who cares about the suffering? There are layers to this situation that you can't begin to understand." He stepped forward, closing the distance between them, and Malina felt a shiver run down her spine. The shadows deepened as his words hung in the air, a mix of warning and revelation. Malina took a breath, steeling herself against the weight of his implication. This was no longer just about the illness. It was a gateway to a far larger conflict brewing beneath the surface. "Then enlighten me, Wraith. What are you hiding?" The twilight thickened, and the distant sounds of the square faded, leaving only the two of them suspended in a moment that promised both danger and revelation. Chapter 4 Veil of Dusk. As dusk settled over the shrouded negotiation grounds, a coldness crept into Malina Zandri's bones, twisting her stomach into knots. She stood at the edge, the eerie silence amplifying her anxiety. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders, steeling herself for the confrontation ahead. The ancient trees loomed above, their twisted trunks casting long shadows on the ground. Soft, dappled light filtered through the leaves, creating an almost surreal atmosphere. This place, once sacred, now felt heavy with untold stories and unresolved tensions, as if the ghosts of past negotiators were watching her every move. The weight of the moment pressed against her, the stakes rising as she prepared to challenge Wraith Yseris about the curse intertwined with the maze. "Wraith!" she called, her voice firm yet urgent. He emerged from the shadows, his expression inscrutable, a flicker of something akin to regret passing over his features. "What do you know about the curse? Why are you connected to it?" Wraith hesitated, the silence between them thickening. "It's not just a curse, Malina. It's a legacy, one that binds me to the maze. You need to understand that some questions lead to more peril than answers." Her fists clenched tightly as she glared at him. "Then tell me what I need to know. I can't face this alone." Wraith stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper, as if the trees themselves might overhear. "The maze reveals your deepest fears, Malina. You have to confront them to break free, but beware the path is treacherous, and not all who enter return whole." His words hung in the air, a chilling promise that made her skin prickle. Determination and dread surged within Malina, as she knew the answers she sought lurked just beyond the shadows of the maze, waiting for her to take the first step. The shrouded negotiation grounds lay draped in twilight as dusk unfurled its velvet cloak across the dense grove. Shadows crept among the towering trees, resembling wraiths, their gnarled trunks twisting skyward. A peculiar mist snaked through the air, diffusing the last rays of light into a haunting glow. Malina Zandri stood at the edge, her pulse quickening, the ground beneath her soft with moss that squelched underfoot. The musty scent of damp earth mingled with the sweet decay of fallen foliage, wrapping around her like a shroud, thickening the atmosphere with echoes of unspoken memories and unresolved tensions. She hesitated, her gaze drawn to the weathered stone altar, its surface etched with cryptic symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The air crackled with ancient energy, as if the stones themselves whispered secrets of the past. Each breath felt heavier, laden with the ghosts of those who had stood there before her, negotiating fates that rippled through time. The distant rustle of leaves sent a shiver through her, and Malina clenched her fists, her fingernails digging into her palms. The scent of sweet decay flooded her senses, a reminder of the lives she had touched and failed. The wildflowers at the base of the altar swayed slightly, their vibrant colors almost mocking her guilt. Each petal was a reminder of her past choices, and the very air vibrated with accusations. A low hum, barely audible, swirled around her, echoing memories of old negotiations, promises made and broken. Malina's heart raced as she debated confronting Wraith's spectre of shame or seeking the warmth of her community, a struggle that felt insurmountable. As the cool breeze swept through the grove, Malina's skin prickled, contrasting with the warmth of the lingering sunlight on her face. She craved understanding, a way to unearth the truth buried beneath the moss and shadows. How could she protect others when she couldn't even forgive herself? The whispers of ancient negotiators crescendoed around her, their murmurs a cacophony of doubts and fears. Her breath quickened, mixing with the dampness of the air, each inhalation a battle against despair threatening to engulf her. Yet within that oppressive atmosphere, determination ignited, urging her to stand her ground. Malina took a deep breath, the cool evening air biting against her tongue like a blade. Shadows twisted around her, but she wouldn't let them dictate her fate. She was not merely a vessel for the curse, she was also its potential savior. The burden of her past pressed heavily on her shoulders, but in the heart of the shrouded negotiation grounds, a spark of hope ignited, a fragile ember in the darkness. The air hummed with memories and unfinished business as she turned her gaze toward. Dusk draped itself over the confluent square like a heavy cloak, the last rays of sunlight filtering through the ancient stone arches, casting elongated shadows across the uneven cobblestones. The scent of damp earth mingled with the decay of overgrown flora, remnants of wild gardens that had once flourished here. Murmurs and shouts echoed off the stone walls, amplifying a sense of urgency that gnawed at Wraith's insides. As she stepped onto the central platform, the cool stone beneath her bare feet contrasted with the warmth of her heartbeat quickening, each thump resonating in the fading light. Creeping vines twisted around the dais, tightening around her throat while anticipation coursed through her, a reminder of the past she was about to unravel. Wraith's voice rose above the crowd, each word clipped and cold. "We stand here as mere shadows of our former selves, cursed to wander this maze of our making. This labyrinth is not a testament, it is our prison, binding us to the dark echoes of our past." Murmurs of the crowd were laced with urgency, their eyes darting back to Wraith. In the dimming light, she caught the flicker of Malina's silhouette, half hidden beneath the arches, her posture tense, shifting with unease. As Wraith unveiled the history of the maze, charged tension filled the air. The maze was born from our despair and divided us when we needed unity the most. She continued, her voice steady, though her stomach twisted. With each revelation, the scent of decay grew stronger, mingling with the metallic tang of anxiety. Malina's eyes flicked about, reflecting her dread. "Do you not see? Our fates are entwined." Wraith pressed on, desperation edging her tone. "To confront the curse, we must confront ourselves." Malina's voice broke through, raw and trembling. "You expect me to just accept this? To cradle the darkness that wraps around us like a shroud?" The coolness of dusk pressed in around them, the crowd's murmurs fading as she stepped forward, the cobblestones crunching beneath her hesitant weight. Wraith's resolve solidified, the air thick with the promise of rain, an impending storm mirroring the brewing conflict. "You must, Malina. We cannot run from the truth any longer." The urgency pulsed between them, weaving a fragile thread of hope amid the chaos as the gardens rustled ominously, their twisted flora echoing the turmoil within. As the sky deepened into indigo, Wraith's voice softened, drawing the crowd into the gravity of her words. "Together we will confront the maze and the curse that haunts us. United, we can reclaim our legacy." The stone walls echoed her sentiment, amplifying the resolve that blossomed in the square. Malina's face shifted, determination sparking in her eyes, illuminating her fear with newfound clarity. As the last light surrendered to the night, Wraith stood. Dusk enveloped the shrouded negotiation grounds in a cloak of shadows, the air thick with anticipation. Malina Zandri stood at the edge, her pulse racing against her ribs, the weight of her past failures pressed down on her like a heavy shroud. The revelation of the curse loomed, and fleeting moments slipped through her fingers like sand. Clarity was essential. She needed to confront her role in this impending darkness before the week ended. Otherwise, the corruption would seep into something pure, infecting her community beyond repair. A deep breath stilled her racing pulse, but it quickly faded. Urgency tightened around her throat, and echoes of the past whispered in her ears, demanding acknowledgement. There was no time to waste. She had to decide if she would step into the light or retreat into the familiar comfort of shadow. Memories crashed over her, threatening to pull her under. Faces of those she had failed flickered through her mind, familiar smiles twisted by fear, their laughter now silent. The curse had taken so much, and she had stood by, paralyzed by doubt. What if I lead them into disaster? The thought slithered in, robbing her of her resolve. She squeezed her eyes shut, wishing for courage, but all she felt was a gnawing terror that her inadequacies would rear up again, dragging down those she tried to protect. She glanced at the darkening sky, urgency tightening in her chest. With each tick of the clock, the stakes rose. By dawn it would be too late to make amends. She had to act, but how? The rustle of leaves whispered secrets, taunting her indecision. Malina's breath quickened, her palms clammy against her sides. The fear of failure wrapped around her heart like a vice. "I can't do this alone," she murmured, but the words felt like a betrayal. Bravery was a choice, one she had to make now. What if she faltered? What if stepping forward meant losing everything? The curse was not just a shadow, it was alive, feeding on her fear. She had to confront it, but the thought paralyzed her. If she failed, it wouldn't just be her downfall, it would mean the end for everyone she held dear. The ground beneath her felt unstable, trembling with the tension of the moment. Malina scanned her surroundings, seeking solace in the shadows. Yet she knew hiding wouldn't protect her community. The whispers of the crowd back at the square echoed in her mind, urging her forward. "They're counting on you.
they seemed to say. But guilt clawed at her, a relentless reminder of all she had lost.
As dusk enveloped the shrouded negotiation grounds, shadows clung to the towering trees, wrapping the space in a heavy silence. Malina Zandri stood resolute, her chest thudding with each anxious heartbeat. She sought not only answers, but a way to shatter the insidious curse threatening to corrupt her community, a darkness poised to become permanent, if she failed before the week's end. Wraith, the elusive architect of their torment, lingered just beyond her line of sight, an ominous presence of manipulation and deceit. The clock ticked loudly in her ears as she pressed forward, fueled by determination to confront him and unravel the tangled threads of his lies. Wraith leaned against a gnarled tree, a smirk dancing on his lips as the shadows masked his features. "You know more than you let on, don't you? What's the maze to you, Wraith? What do I need to do to lift this curse?" Malina's voice trembled with urgency, the air slicing through the heavy atmosphere. "Time is running out. If we don't find peace before the end of the week, it will taint everything we hold dear." Wraith's laughter echoed, cold and mocking. "Peace is a privilege for the foolish. You cling to hope like it's a lifeline, but it will drown you, Malina. What if the answer lies not in the maze but in the heart of your fears?" Malina stepped closer, her voice firm, every word from Wraith a dagger twisting in her gut. "You're playing games with lives. I won't let the darkness take my community. Tell me how to break the curse, or what?" he interrupted, his eyes gleaming with malice. "You threaten me. You know nothing of real power, Malina. The curse has roots that run deep. You might be surprised by what you find should you dig too deep. You could lose more than you ever bargained for." Desperation clawed at her throat, the words catching in her throat. "I'm not afraid of losing everything if it means saving them." But her resolve wavered, making her skin prickle with unease. Suddenly, as if summoned by her defiance, a gust of wind howled through the grounds, scattering leaves and whispering secrets of the cursed maze. Wraith's expression shifted, the smug facade cracking as shadows writhed around him. "You've made your choice, Malina, but be careful what you wish for. Once you step into the truth, there's no turning back." Just as Malina prepared to challenge him further, a flash of brilliance illuminated the darkness, revealing the intricate details of the maze's entrance for a heartbeat. The ground quaked beneath her, a harbinger of the dangers yet to come. She had to decide quickly, or risk losing everything to the very curse she sought to defeat. Chapter 5 Veil of Resolve. Dawn crept over the shrouded negotiation grounds, casting a dim light on the mist that clung to the earth, thick with the scent of damp moss and decaying leaves. Malina Zandri stepped through the underbrush, her woven moss-fiber tunic brushing against the wet foliage. Nearby, a vendor set out his wares, the early morning sun glinting off the slick scales of crossing fish laid on a bed of crushed wild herbs. The quiet stirrings of the delta began to awaken, the distant sounds of fishermen preparing their nets blending with the soft rustle of leaves. Driven by the urgency of her community's plight, Malina approached the clearing where Wraith awaited. The weight of unspoken prayers lingered in the air, as if the gods themselves hovered close, watching over their troubled waters. As she neared, Malina caught sight of Wraith, his imposing figure framed by the spectral trees. He stood with unsettling calm, dark garments flowing around him like shadows. A twinge of fear tightened her throat at the whispered rumors of his power. A small crowd gathered at the edge of the clearing, their faces a mix of horror and anticipation, clutching their wrapped portions of moss bread as if it were their only lifeline. Malina hesitated, dipped her head, and placed her hand over her heart in respect, though the gesture felt hollow. Wraith smirked, his lips curling as if he sensed her trepidation. "The illness plaguing our community. What are you doing to help?" Malina demanded, her voice steady despite the knot of anxiety in her gut. Wraith's gaze flickered with amusement, the hollowness of his eyes catching the light. "Help! You seek answers, but the truth is a shadow you may not wish to embrace," he replied, his voice smooth like the still waters of the delta. He lifted a hand, and a ripple of dark energy surged around him, the air thick with an electric charge. Malina's breath caught. She could almost hear the soft prayers of the onlookers, a collective wish for protection from the impending chaos. The ground beneath them trembled, and without warning a man from the crowd stepped forward, his face twisted with desperation. "Stop this! You must answer for your deeds," he shouted, pointing directly at Wraith, a grave offense that made Malina's stomach twist in knots.
In an instant, Wraith's power surged forth, dark tendrils spiraling from his palm. Malina's stomach twisted as she watched the man's body contort grotesquely, wrenched by a scream from his throat. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Some stumbled back while others stood frozen, their faces a mask of terror. The man, now a grotesque figure of shadow and despair, echoed the lingering fears of the gathered, their restless spirits haunting the air. Wraith lowered his hand.
The air buzzed with tension as dawn's light struggled to pierce the thick mist of the shrouded negotiation grounds. Malina Zandri stood at the edge, every tick of the clock echoing ominously in her ears. She had until the end of the week, just days, to confront Wraith and reverse the illness ravaging her home. The whispers of her community, filled with dread and despair, pressed down on her. If she failed, the corruption of something pure would seal their fate. This was not merely a negotiation, it was a desperate plea for survival. The stakes had never been higher, and the ground shifted beneath Malina's feet, a prelude to the storm ahead. Malina took a deep breath, her fists clenching as she faced the gathering darkness that was Wraith. Shadows danced around her, whispering of failure and fear. "Wraith, I beg you, lend us your aid. The pain, it's unbearable, can't you feel it?" Her plea hung in the air, a fragile thread of hope amid the thickening gloom. But Wraith erupted into a chilling laugh, his dark energy swirling like a tempest around him, snuffing out her resolve. "You dare challenge me? Your people are mere pawns, nothing without my power." The ground trembled as Wraith raised his hand, summoning a grotesque transformation before her eyes. An innocent villager, once filled with laughter, writhed in agony as dark tendrils coiled around them, reshaping flesh into something horrific. Panic clawed at Malina's throat. "No, stop this," she screamed, but the words felt futile, swallowed by the overwhelming darkness. She staggered back, breath shallow, as the creature turned, eyes filled with a haunting void. This display of Wraith's power left her reeling, the realization of her impotence crashing over her like a tidal wave. They were losing everything, and every moment counted. Malina's thoughts raced, a whirlwind of strategies and fears. Could she rally the people to fight back against Wraith's dark influence? Each second felt like a knife slicing through her resolve. "We have only days left, and he grows stronger by the hour." The villagers stood with pale, resigned faces, their eyes dull and lifeless. She had to act, but how could she fight a monster wielding such power? Time was slipping away, each moment more precious than the last. The creature, now fully transformed, let out a chilling roar that echoed through the grounds, a sound that would haunt her nightmares. Malina stood, adrenaline coursing through her, a blend of fear and defiance igniting her spirit. She was more than just a spectator, she was their last hope, but the darkness gathered, and in the heart of the shrouded negotiation grounds, Malina paused, her breath coming in shallow gulps as the air thickened with the musty scent of damp earth and the sweet decay of fallen leaves. Sunlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting ghostly shadows upon the moss-covered stones beneath her feet. Each step squelched softly, echoing the ancient negotiations whispered by the twisted trunks surrounding her. The vibrant wildflowers at the edges of the clearing pulsed with an energy that felt almost alive, starkly contrasting the tension coiling within her. Here, amid the haunting beauty, Wraith's dark influence wrapped around the townspeople like creeping vines strangling the sacred stones. The villagers gathered at the edge of the grove, faces drawn and weary, eyes flickering with uncertainty as anxiety hung like a thick fog. Malina stepped forward, a shiver racing down her back. "We got to stand together now, against Wraith." Her voice trembled, yet she fought to mask it with strength, hoping to ignite a spark of courage. But as she spoke, the distant rustling of leaves echoed ominously, and the villagers exchanged anxious looks, their expressions growing more tense, as if the very trees leaned in to listen, to judge. A low rumble of laughter pierced the air, curling around her like smoke. Wraith's voice, smooth and insidious, drifted from the shadows. "You really believe you can save them, Malina? They are mine? Their fear binds them to me, far more than your pathetic hope ever could." The words stuck in her throat, bitter as ash. The wildflowers shimmered, almost mocking her, as if they could taste her despair.
She clenched her fists, the rough edges of the stones biting into her palms, grounding her in this moment of desperation. With a deep breath, she attempted to rally them again, desperation spilling into her tone. "Look around you. This place, these grounds, hold the history of our ancestors. We can channel their strength." But the villagers exchanged fearful glances, their body language reflecting their fears, crossed arms, fidgeting as the energy in the air shifted. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, a ticking clock counting down the moments until Wraith's hold became absolute. As the gathering stretched on, the air thickened with unspoken fears and unresolved tensions. Malina stood alone, the softness of the moss beneath her feet, now a sharp reminder of her isolation. The whispers of the past mingled with the present, the air electric with tension. The vibrant wildflowers became haunting reminders of life.
The shrouded negotiation grounds lay draped in a twilight hush, where the last rays of sun filtered through the dense canopy overhead, casting playful shadows that danced along the mossy floor. A chill crept into the air, thick with the earthy scent of damp soil and decaying leaves, mingling with the sweetness of wildflowers pulsing with unsettling vibrancy. Malina's foot sank into the soft, yielding moss, her shoulders slumping under the weight of her thoughts as an eerie silence enveloped her like a shroud, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves, whispering secrets long buried. She remained in this sacred space, the heavy air pregnant with untold stories, the twisted trunks of ancient trees seeming to harbor unseen eyes, watching her in silence. Malina stepped forward, her breath hitching as the ground squelched beneath her boots, the moss clinging cool and clammy against her skin. Each step felt like an intrusion, as if she were disturbing the echoes of past negotiators who had once stood in this very spot, their fates entwined with the weight of decisions made. The stone altar loomed ahead, etched with cryptic symbols that shimmered in the fading light, pulsing with a heartbeat of their own, both an invitation and a warning. A low hum pulsed ominously through the space, a sound that demanded attention, as if it were a prelude to something inevitable. It nestled in her ears like a haunting melody, drawing her deeper into the grounds. Malina's fingers brushed against the weathered stone, its surface rough and cold, sending a shiver racing through her, echoing the despair coiling tightly in her gut. The wildflowers nearby, vibrant yet oddly disconcerting, swayed gently as if in rhythm with her growing turmoil. Were they beckoning her to embrace her past or mocking her failures? As she stood before the altar, her heart raced, and it felt like breathing was a battle, each inhale a reminder of her past failures. The memories of Wraith's power surged back, each scream, each flash of darkness swirling in her mind like a tempest. The sweet damp scent of the earth intensified, mingling with a hint of something acrid, a reminder of the fear that had seeped into her community. The rustling leaves whispered around her, voices of the past urging her to remember not just the pain, but the strength it could forge. Malina closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, her fists clenched, determined to cast aside her doubts. The twilight deepened, shadows stretching long and dark as the last light faded from the sky, leaving only the eerie glow of phosphorescent moss illuminating the ground beneath her. In that haunting stillness, Malina found clarity amidst the chaos, a spark igniting within her. The weight of her failures shifted, transforming into fierce determination. She stood taller, embracing the darkness that had once loomed over her, ready to confront Wraith, not just as a leader, but as a protective force. The chill of dusk enveloped Malina as she approached the shrouded negotiation grounds, its gnarled trees clawing at the indigo sky. The air was thick with an otherworldly mist, diffusing the soft, dappled light and casting an eerie glow on the creeping vines that clung to the ancient stones. Each step resonated with her determined purpose, the haunting atmosphere heightening her senses. Here, lost souls whispered among the shadows, and the weight of unfulfilled promises pressed down on her. She had come to confront Wraith Yseris, not just for herself, but for every life shattered by the creeping illness gnawing at their community. Distant screams echoed like a chorus of despair, igniting her urgency to act. Roots snaked across her path, threatening to trip her as she advanced. Malina inhaled sharply, the scent of decay mingling with damp earth, but she squared her shoulders and pressed on. Beneath the skeletal branches, Wraith Yseris awaited, cloaked in swirling darkness. A wave of his hand shimmered in the air, an unsettling pulse radiating from him. Malina felt her resolve waver. She hesitated, her breath shallow as doubt crept into her mind. No backing down now. The screams echoed, propelling her forward,
quickening her pace, each step a rebellion against fear. Yseris turned, his face obscured by shadows. Answers here? You truly overestimate your worth? Malina Zandri, he sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. Malina's heart quickened. She clenched her fists, sensing the challenge in his tone. Your games won't stop the suffering, Wraith. I'm here for them, not your games. The words clawed their way out, raw and unfiltered, but the heavy silence that followed swallowed her demand for clarity. Shadows twisted around her, deepening the chasm of uncertainty between them. As her last word lingered in the air, Yseris's form began to shift. Shadows coiled around him, drawn by some unseen force. Malina staggered back, pulse quickening. He transformed into a nightmare made flesh, limbs elongated and twisted, the air crackling with dark energy. Fear clawed at her insides, but resolve anchored her. This was his power, the dark force corrupting her community, thriving on the very fear she fought against. Would she be the next victim, or could she face this darkness? The ground trembled beneath her, resonating with the weight of her decision. Tension thickened the air, pressing down on her like a heavy weight. She couldn't falter. Not now, not ever, but how could she confront the darkness without becoming part of it? The thought gnawed at her, a question that loomed larger than the shadows around Yseris.
Chapter 6. Shadows of Resolve. Malina stepped into the shrouded negotiation grounds, shadows stretching across the uneven terrain. The air thickened, pressing against her skin as echoes of old debates whispered through the twisted foliage. Yseris's gaze haunted her thoughts, a constant reminder of the darkness trailing her. She clenched her fists tighter, her resolve hardening against the unease that enveloped her. Each step felt weighted, as if the ground held secrets it refused to share. Ahead, the maze loomed, its paths shrouded in uncertainty, a treacherous dance of illusion and treachery. The curse wrapped around her community like a noose, but beneath the fear hope blossomed in her chest. She wouldn't let the shadows claim her. Not today. The first turn of the maze twisted her stomach. Malina squinted into the dim light, shadows darting at the edges of her vision. Stay close, she whispered. Her allies, a ragtag group of local misfits, nodded, determination etched on their faces. They pressed forward, each step a risky negotiation with the unseen dangers lurking in the undergrowth. A rustle to the left made her freeze, adrenaline surging through her. Was it the Wraith? No, just a breeze, whispering deceit? They pushed on, as if the maze conspired against them, testing their resolve with every deceptive fork. The next junction opened wide, revealing a glimmer on the ground. Malina knelt, brushing aside the damp leaves. There it was, an artifact, half buried, pulsating with energy. Her fingers tingled as they grazed its surface, the stone warm beneath her touch. Images flooded her mind, a village in celebration, laughter ringing out, unity against a common foe. This is it, she breathed, hope blossoming in her chest. Her allies gathered around, their eyes wide, belief sparking in the air. She sensed the curse loosening its grip, a chance for restoration blooming within her. But the maze shifted again, the ground trembling beneath them. The Wraith's presence loomed, a dark spectre stalking their every move. Malina straightened, defiance igniting her spirit. We can't turn back now, we're so close. Her voice rang out, steady and fierce. The others rallied, their fear morphing into determination. They stood together, united against the encroaching darkness, as the artifact's glow brightened. It resonated with their collective spirit, illuminating the path ahead. Energy surged through her veins, a promise of change. As they emerged from the maze's clutches, the sky opened up, bathing them in warm light. Malina cradled the artifact close, its warmth a reminder of their shared struggle. The past dusk enveloped the shrouded negotiation grounds in a cloak of deepening shadows. The air crackling with the energy of the artifact Malina Zandri held tightly in her hands. She stood frozen, the weight of her community's hopes pressing heavily upon her. Doubts clawed at her resolve. If she failed to wield this power and guide her people before the week's end, the consequences would be dire, permanent corruption of something pure. Time slipped away like sand through her fingers, and she had to grasp the gravity of this moment before it slipped away. The weathered stone altar, etched with cryptic symbols, radiated a palpable energy, while the twisted trunks of ancient trees formed a natural barrier,
isolating her from the outside world. The atmosphere was thick with an otherworldly mist, creating an eerie glow that seemed to deepen her sense of isolation. Malina's breath quickened as she surveyed the eerie grounds, the thick air suffocating her resolve. Memories of past failures loomed over her, each a reminder of her losses. "What if I let them down again?" she whispered, grappling with the specters of doubt that haunted her. She had vowed to lead and protect, but anxiety paralyzed her. Each second felt like a countdown to disaster. The artifact pulsed in her hands, urging her to act. Yet she hesitated, caught in a web of fear and the desperate need to safeguard her newfound allies. The last rays of sunlight vanished behind the jagged mountains, and Malina's resolve wavered. "I can't let them down, not after everything they've done for me," she thought, guilt twisting in her gut with each pulse of the artifact. She envisioned the faces of her friends, their faith in her a heavy burden. How could she lead them when confusion clouded her mind? The choice loomed: stand firm and embrace her role, or retreat into self-doubt, an option that beckoned with a dangerous allure as fear tightened its grip. A rustle in the distance jolted her from her spiraling thoughts. Shadows shifted around her, and her pulse raced as they approached. What if the darkness she feared had come for her? "No, I can't just run away," she shouted into the void, but the sound faded, swallowed by her uncertainty. Time was slipping away, and an ominous weight settled on her chest. If she didn't act soon, they would all suffer the consequences of her inaction. With the artifact heavy in her grasp, Malina inhaled deeply, steeling herself against the wave of fear. She could not let dread dictate her actions any longer. The community needed her, and she stepped forward, ready to confront her past and embrace her path as a leader.
The moon hung low over the shrouded negotiation grounds, its ethereal light casting elongated shadows that danced across the ancient stones. Malina Zandri stood at the entrance of the labyrinth, her pulse quickened, every instinct urging her to hurry. 3 days remained until the curse's grip would tighten irrevocably on her community, corrupting all that was pure. Whispers of her allies urged her forward. The only way to break the curse was to uncover the ancient artifact hidden deep within the maze. She tightened her grip on the flickering lantern, its light struggling against the encroaching darkness, and stepped into the maze, determination igniting within her. Each step echoed ominously, the cold air wrapping around Malina's throat. Shadows morphed and loomed, forming grotesque shapes that tested her resolve. Malina paused, doubt surged, twisting in her gut. Failure meant the curse would solidify by week's end, and her community would succumb to despair. She pressed on, each beat drumming a frantic rhythm, a reminder of the ticking clock. The path forked ahead, branches weaving into a web of uncertainty. Choosing left felt instinctive, while the right path shimmered with an alluring glow that beckoned her closer. Hesitation gripped her, every second counted. If only she could see through the illusions, but the curse had clouded her vision, warping reality into a nightmarish game. The walls of the maze shifted, threatening to collapse around her. She scrambled to her feet, hands shaking as she tried to regain her balance. The sound of laughter rang in her ears, taunting, menacing. "You think you can unravel fate?" It sneered. Malina slumped, a deep sigh escaping her lips. She had to keep moving, had to find the artifact. Time stalked her, every step relentless. With renewed determination, she plunged deeper into the maze's heart, each twist growing more treacherous under the weight of the impending deadline. Finally, she stumbled upon a hidden chamber, its entrance cloaked in shadows. The air thickened with anticipation, and as she crossed the threshold, her lantern flickered wildly. There it lay, the ancient artifact, radiating a soft, inviting glow. Heart pounding, she reached out, fingers brushing against its cool surface. The moment her skin made contact, visions surged through her mind, images of laughter, tears, and the faces of her community, intertwined with hers, bound by hope and shared dreams. The artifact pulsed with energy, resonating with their unity, a beacon of light in the darkness. But with this discovery came a new dread. She could feel the curse tightening its grip, sensing her proximity to redemption, and fighting back fiercely. As the visions faded, urgency ignited within her. The confluence square thrummed with an uneasy energy, the morning air dense with anticipation. Ancient stone arches loomed overhead, casting long shadows over the cobblestones where weeds crept through the cracks, reminders of a forgotten past. Malina Zandri stood at the center, clutching the artifact, a glimmering shard of hope, its iridescent surface catching the light. The tremors of the chamber's collapse still echoed in her bones, spurring her forward. Every face in the crowd mirrored a mix of hope and skepticism as she drew a deep breath, the weight of their gaze settling on her like a heavy mantle. "This could be our moment, folks. I really feel it in my bones that we can break this curse, if we just stand together," she called out, her voice steady despite the churning uncertainty within her. Malina's voice wrapped around the crowd like a warm embrace. "The artifact holds the power to heal our land, to restore what has been lost." She gestured toward the shimmering shard, sunlight refracting off its surface and scattering shards of light across the cobblestones. For an instant, she caught the glimmer of belief in their eyes, a spark that could shatter the chains of doubt. Yet, as quickly as it appeared, shadows crept back in, cloaking the square in unease. A low murmur rippled through the crowd, dissent rising like a quiet storm. From the periphery, Wraith Yseris stepped forward, his dark cloak billowing around him. "And what if this artifact is merely a trap, leading us to an even worse fate than the curse we already bear?" His voice cut through her fervor, each word laced with venom. The crowd's attention shifted, eyes darting between them, weighing his words against hers. Malina's fists clenched. Doubt had no place here. "Fear has kept us shackled. This artifact is our key to freedom, to a future untainted by the past." Even as she spoke, she felt the ground shift beneath her, the rift widening. A handful of supporters cheered, but many remained silent, their fear tightening around them like a noose. With renewed determination, she raised her voice once more. "We must choose courage." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. She scanned the faces, some shone with resolve, while others remained immovable, like stones in a river. A flicker of hope caught her eye. A child stood beside an elder, both watching her intently. If they could believe, why couldn't the others? But Yseris stepped closer, a shadow looming over her light. "You seek to lead them into darkness, Malina? What do you truly know of this artifact?" His words slithered through the crowd, igniting whispers that pierced the fragile belief she had built. Malina's breath hitched. Did she know enough? Dawn light filtered through the gnarled branches of ancient trees, casting a spectral glow over the shrouded negotiation grounds. Malina inhaled deeply, the air thick with the musty scent of damp earth and sweet decay, the soft moss beneath her feet squelched with each tentative step, while a chill breeze grazed her skin, carrying whispers of forgotten negotiations. Vibrant wildflowers at the edge of the altar pulsed with life, an unsettling contrast to the oppressive atmosphere. Mist hung low, shrouding the crowd in an ethereal veil, their faces blurred as if they were mere shadows, amplifying the sense of unease. Malina stood at the weathered stone altar, etched with cryptic symbols that radiated an unsettling energy. "This old thing? It ain't just a piece of junk, it's like a light in the dark." Her voice trembled with urgency, cutting through the rustle of leaves and the low hum of unseen creatures. The ground beneath her felt alive, the moss soft and yielding, absorbing the weight of her conviction. Doubt lingered thick in the air, curling around her ankles like the mist. She scanned the crowd, some faces flickering with hope, others clouded with skepticism, their eyes reflecting the uncertainty gnawing at her resolve. Just as confidence began to swell among the crowd, a chilling voice sliced through the morning haze. "Hope? It's a snare. That relic you hold onto will only lead to your downfall." Wraith Yseris stepped forward, his silhouette stark against the soft glow of dawn. He gestured dismissively, and the crowd shifted uneasily, glancing at the pulsating wildflowers as if they were infected with the doubt he sowed. "You speak of ruin, but what do you offer instead?" Malina retorted, her breath quickening under the pressure. A soft rustle brushed against her ear, echoing murmurs from the crowd, yet she faced Yseris's cold glare. "The past is riddled with fears, but we can change our fate." Determination surged within her, fragile amidst the cold doubt whispering through the grove, yet she refused to let it falter. Tension crackled between them, each heartbeat amplifying the urgency of her words. The soft squelch of moss underfoot beat like a drum, echoing her racing heart as she fought to reclaim their faith. Stepping closer to the altar, she felt the weight of its history, a reminder of the delicate balance she must maintain. "We can heal together." Her voice rang out, filled with fervor, but Yseris's words lingered like smoke in the minds of those gathered, each whisper a reminder of the fear she needed to dispel. As dawn continued to break,
The mist lifted slightly, revealing the faces of the crowd, some bright with hope, others cloaked in uncertainty. Malina's resolve hardened as she glanced at the...
Chapter 7. Whispers of Twilight. Dusk enveloped the shrouded negotiation grounds, shadows stretching across the ancient stones, thick with the scent of damp earth. Nestled within a grove of towering trees, the grounds felt alive with whispers, the air heavy with an otherworldly mist that diffused the fading light. Malina Zandri stood at the center, a relentless beat echoing her mounting dread. Before her loomed Wraith, the enigmatic figure whose motives twisted like the maze itself. "What do you want with the maze, Wraith? We've only got days left before it's all gone to rot." Urgency tightened her throat, each word harder to voice. With the weeks slipping away, the fate of her community depended on the truth, and she could almost hear the countdown to disaster. Wraith's lips curled into a sly smile, his eyes glinting with cold arrogance. "Isn't it more enjoyable to play a game of cat and mouse? The maze's fate is a tangled web, and you grasp so little of its intricacies." He stepped closer, his voice a low whisper that sent chills through her. Each word dripped with manipulation, dragging her deeper into uncertainty. She fought the urge to flee, the pressure clawing at her chest. He kicked the ground, shaking it violently beneath them. "Stop toying with me," she hissed. Her breathing quickened as panic surged through her. "We don't have time for riddles." The ground convulsed again, sending a shiver through Malina's bones. She clenched her fists, adrenaline coursing through her. "The maze is a living entity, Wraith. If you don't help me understand it, we could lose everything we hold dear." Desperation seeped into her voice, urgency laced within every syllable. But Wraith only chuckled, the sound mocking and hollow. "You think you can save them? The purity you seek is already tainted. Accept it, Malina. The truth is a bitter pill to swallow." His words hung in the air like a noose tightening around her neck. Malina's pulse quickened as she stepped forward, ready to confront him, but the ground shook once more violently. Dust rained down from the twisted branches overhead, and a crack split the earth between them, widening like a wound. She stumbled back, her breathing quickened as panic surged anew. "The weekend's soon, Wraith. We have to act before it's too late." But he only smirked, shadows deepening around him, as if he fed off her fear. "Ah, but it may already be too late." Malina's heart raced as she glanced at the gaping fissure. Time was slipping through her fingers like sand, and Wraith stood there, enigmatic and infuriating. "Tell me the truth, Wraith," she shouted, desperation clawing at her throat, but his smile only widened. The ground convulsed beneath her, and as the darkness thickened, the shrouded negotiation grounds loomed like an ancient secret draped in twilight's embrace. Towering trees surrounded the area, their twisted trunks a testament to countless negotiations held long ago. Creeping vines and shimmering moss clung to the weathered stones of a once sacred altar, now overrun by nature's reclaiming touch. A dense mist hung in the air, diffusing the fading light into a soft glow, while cryptic symbols etched into the stone radiated a palpable energy. Wraith Yseris stood at the threshold of this charged atmosphere, the oppressive maze constricting around her. Shadows flitted at the edge of her vision, while the ground trembled, urging her to act against the pressure of her thoughts. Beside her, Malina Zandri stood rigid, her shoulders drooping like a wilting flower caught between fear and duty. "Malina!" Wraith's voice sliced through the dusk, urgent and commanding. Malina's gaze remained fixed on the twisting paths sprawling before them, her indecision evident. Wraith stepped closer, desperation fueling her words. "This maze, it's not just a trap, it's a guardian of our realm, a keeper of memories. Every path holds a story, every turn a choice. Lose it, and we lose control. It's that simple." Malina's fingers twitched, avoiding Wraith's gaze. Ghostly echoes of past negotiators seemed to linger, each whisper a plea for action. Wraith clenched her fists, urgency pulsing through her veins. "You have to embrace your role, Malina. We can't let selfishness destroy what is sacred." As the earth quaked again, a stark reminder of their dwindling time, Wraith's heart raced, not for herself, but for the maze, the life it held within its twisting corridors. She reached for Malina's arm, gripping it tightly. "Please, we can protect it together. Don't let fear decide for you." Malina hesitated, her brow furrowing as she met Wraith's intense gaze. Wraith's breath hitched as she saw determination flicker in Malina's eyes, a potential guardian awakening. Wraith stepped back,
her choice weighing heavily on her, anchoring her to the spot. To protect this labyrinth meant renouncing her own desires, her own peace. Yet, as she gazed into the fading light, something shifted within her. A profound sense of purpose bloomed, filling the void left by doubt. She squared her shoulders, determination surging through her. "I'll take on the burden. I will protect the maze, no matter the cost." With that vow, a wave of tranquility washed over her, soothing the frayed edges of her soul, a quiet acceptance of her path. The maze would endure, a testament to the strength of sacrifice, and she would be its shield. As dusk settled like a shroud around them, Wraith stood at the edge of the shifting paths, the weight of her choice.
The moon hung high above the shrouded negotiation grounds, casting an ethereal glow on Wraith Yseris in the center of the maze. Time slipped away like sand through her fingers. If she failed to find peace for the maze before the week ended, everything she cherished would be lost to corruption. The air buzzed with a restless energy, prickling her skin. The maze pulsed beneath her feet, a living entity yearning for salvation. Wraith inhaled sharply. A tightening in her chest mirrored the weight of impending failure. This was not merely about her own peace. It was about protecting the sanctity of the maze, the very essence of life that thrived within its twisted paths. Wraith's pulse thundered in her ears as she surveyed the dense shadows creeping along the maze's edges, a chilling reminder of the encroaching threat. Whispers of her desires tugged at her, a longing for a quiet life away from this chaos. But she wouldn't, let herself be distracted. The maze needed her, and each moment of hesitation brought the inevitable corruption closer. Clenching her fists, nails biting into her palms, she sought grounding in the pain. No escape, no peace, only sacrifice. A figure broke through the shadows, the embodiment of her internal conflict. The Wraith, her darker self, a specter of vengeance and control. "You know the truth, Wraith. You could have it all. Power, peace, everything you've ever wanted. Just step back, let it fall apart. You deserve this." The apparition taunted, its voice a seductive whisper, a dark promise of freedom. Panic slammed against her ribcage, a frantic rhythm echoing in her ears as she faced the embodiment of her worst fears. The maze groaned, a sound of desperation that cut through her doubts. Time slipped away, each second a reminder of the urgency. 3 days left until the corruption claimed its prize. Wraith hesitated, her desires clawing at her mind, yet the maze pulsed beneath her feet, demanding action. "This isn't just about me," she shouted, her voice echoing against the cold stone walls. "I have to protect it." The Wraith stepped closer, a sneer twisting its features. "And what will that cost you? You could relinquish this burden. Let someone else bear it. You're not strong enough to guard it forever." Panic surged anew, her decision looming like a storm cloud. She could almost feel the corruption clawing at the maze's edges, waiting to swallow it whole if she faltered. Sweat dripped down her face as she made her decision, channeling her energy toward the maze's core, feeling the warmth of its vibrant life surge through her. This was her moment, a moment of sacrifice that would define her existence. The Wraith shrieked, its form twisting and writhing as Wraith focused, a guardian now embodying the hope that... A heavy silence filled the air, charged with anticipation as dusk enveloped the shrouded negotiation grounds. Wraith Yseris stood at the heart of the site, where tension clung to her like a shroud. The whispers of past negotiators lingered, their unfulfilled promises echoing in the stillness. Before her, the portal throbbed with a vitality of its own, both inviting and menacing. Time had become a cruel adversary, each second slipping away as she summoned her last reserves of courage. In this moment the maze, her home, balanced on a knife's edge. How much of herself would she surrender to protect it? A shadow stretched out from the portal, dark fingers reaching toward her. Wraith inhaled sharply, her pulse quickening as it advanced. This darkness was familiar, a malevolence gnawing at her resolve. Malina Zandri stood beside her, radiating strength, their eyes locking in a wordless promise forged in the face of doom. Wraith squared her shoulders, the weight of her choice pressing down on her like lead. They would confront this threat together. The shadow coalesced into a figure, its form shifting and twisting with malice. Wraith clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms as the urge to flee flickered like a dying ember. No, she stood firm. The maze had given her sanctuary and kinship, a chance at peace. The thought of losing it ignited a fierce desperation within her. "I won't let you take them," she declared, her voice steady and defiant. The ground trembled beneath her, echoing the stakes as ancient stones whispered of sacrifices made long ago.
Wraith inhaled sharply, the scent of rain-soaked earth mingling with the bitter tang of fear. Clenching her jaw, she reached for the energy thrumming within her, a reservoir built from every moment of pain and joy. The labyrinth had become part of her, each twist and turn a memory etched into her soul. To protect it, she would channel that essence. Her heart surged, not with terror but with fierce determination. Malina's hand brushed against hers, grounding her. Together they formed a barrier of light, a swirling vortex of resolve against the encroaching darkness. As the shadow lunged, Wraith released the energy, a brilliant burst that illuminated the grounds, scattering the malevolence like mist before a gale. Pain coursed through her as the light enveloped her, but she welcomed it as a necessary sacrifice. In that moment, clarity washed over her. Peace was never meant to be a solitary endeavor. The maze, alive and vibrant, pulsed with gratitude, and she grasped the truth of it. The price paid was not an end, but a new beginning, a connection that transcended her existence. A haunting vision of the maze flourishing in the dawn lingered in her mind, a promise echoing through the shadows. She would always be its guardian, and it would never be alone again.
Dusk enveloped the shrouded negotiation grounds, casting elongated shadows that twisted around the core of the maze. Malina Zandri stood still, her gaze fixed on the intricate pathways, weighed down by the memory of Wraith's sacrifice. The air hummed with an eerie stillness, as if the very stones of the maze held stories of loss and rebirth. Memories of Wraith surged within her, mingling with the stark reality of absence. A tightness gripped her chest, an unrelenting reminder of the weight she carried. Yet the maze thrummed beneath her skin, calling her to action, urging her to uphold the legacy of peace. This moment was a turning point, demanding that she guard the maze and honor Wraith's memory with every step she took. Malina stepped forward, the crunch of gravel shattering the silence. Her fingers brushed the cool stone of the maze's edge, tracing lines etched by time and sacrifice. Each contour morphed into Wraith's face, each curve a reminder of promises made. "You must protect it, Malina." Wraith's voice cut through her thoughts, sharp, commanding, just like he was. "The weight of what I must do feels like a stone in my chest, making me stagger. What if I fail? What if the darkness returns?" The thought coiled within her, a stark reminder of her fears. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms, grounding herself against the rising tide of doubt. The maze loomed ahead, alive and breathing, each pathway pulsing in rhythm with her quickened pulse. A flicker of light caught her eye, igniting a spark of defiance. She refused to let fear dictate her actions. With a deep breath she squared her shoulders, her resolve hardening. Memories of Wraith's laughter surfaced within her, a chorus of strength mingled with sorrow. They had shared dreams here, plans woven with hope that now felt like chains. Yet chains could also be forged into armor. Silently, she vowed to shield the maze, to forge a path forward not just for herself, but for Wraith's memory. As darkness deepened, shadows crept across the maze, enveloping it in uncertainty. Malina's pulse quickened with every rustle of leaves, every hint of movement in the underbrush. She froze, nerves prickling, her past clawing at her mind, memories of battles fought and losses endured. But no, she would not be a prisoner of her fears. She pressed forward, each step a declaration. Wraith had given everything. The maze would not be abandoned. Not now, not ever. Malina knelt before the maze's entrance, hands pressed to the earth,